Good day, guys. Welcome to episode 6 of the intelligence layer. Today, we simplify exponential smoothing and alpha. So, somewhere inside your forecasting system, right now, a single number is quietly deciding how fast your company reacts to reality. Its value sits between 0 and 1. It is called alpha. It controls how much weight your forecast gives to what just happened versus everything that happened before. And it was set when the system was configured, probably never reviewed since. And right now, every single forecasting cycle, it is deciding whether you trust new data or smooth it away as noise. So, today, this episode, what alpha actually controls, how to diagnose yours, and why reviewing it is the highest leverage hour you will spend this quarter. Alpha was set once, it runs forever, and it controls more of your forecast than any other model you have ever debated about. So before we go into business logic, let us see where exponential smoothing came from. This is a method that is still running the forecasts of some of the largest companies in the world today. That persistence is not because exponential smoothing is the best method available. Machine learning models can outperform it on complex datasets. But exponential smoothing is still the default engine in SAP, Oracle, Blue Yonder, and Kinexys because it is fast, simple, and proven at enterprise scale. But here is the problem that persistence has created. The method arrived in organizations decades ago, but the governance around it hasn't yet. You know why I say this? Because most of the planning teams today cannot name their alpha value. The person who set it kind of has often left the organization, and after that, adaptive recalibration happens. The most critical maintenance task for any exponential smoothing model, it does not happen because nobody was ever assigned ownership of it. So it is 70 years old, agreed, but still, it is most under reviewed and most deployed. That is not a coincidence, it is a governance failure. See, the mechanism is very simple. Your next forecast is a blend of what actually happened and what you had already expected. Alpha controls that blend. But here is what most companies miss: the right alpha is not a number you calculate once, it is a reflection of how fast demand actually changes for this specific product. At a low alpha, your model trusts its own history far more than recent reality. On a very stable product where demand genuinely does not shift, this works. But if the market changes and alpha stays low, your forecast will consistently lag behind that change for months. At a high alpha, the model catches genuine demand shifts fast, but it also amplifies every unusual period. One bulk order reads as a permanent demand shift. One promotional spike enters the baseline. The forecast becomes reactive to noise rather than signal. Alpha is deciding how quickly the system is allowed to change its mind. One alpha for the entire portfolio is almost certainly wrong for most of the products it is applied to. Make a note of it. The assumption that a model set up correctly at implementation stays correctly is reasonable on the surface. It was configured by professionals, agreed. It passed testing, it went live. But alpha is not a fixed property of a forecasting system. Alpha is a reflection of how fast demand changes for a specific product in a specific market. And that pace is not a fixed property of the product. It is a property of the market environment the product operates in. When the market changes, when a disruption occurs, when a competitor enters, when promotional strategy shifts, the correct alpha for that product changes with it. If nobody reviews alpha when those events occur, the model keeps running at the old value. and the forecast becomes systematically biased in a direction you can diagnose, but most organizations never do it. So, my question to you is, when did you last review your alpha? If you cannot answer it, the answer is never. And your forecast is probably systematically wrong in a direction you have not diagnosed. Now, let us talk about the real example. Alpha set at zero point 0.2 from implementation and was running unchanged for years. Then a major market disruption hits, port congestion, carrier shortages, rate volatility at decade high levels. The market fundamentally changed its characteristics. Demand was swinging dramatically period to period, but Alpha zero point 0.2 was treating every swing as noise to be smoothed away. The swings were the new reality. Forecast accuracy collapsed to 66%, meaning 34% average error. The forecast was consistently lagging market reality by several months. The operations team was firefighting constantly because the plan was always wrong. One afternoon, someone took an initiative, recalibrated alpha to 0.45, more responsive, more weight on recent data in a genuinely more volatile environment. Forecast accuracy jumped to 81% within 2 months. One afternoon, one parameter, which was set wrong for over a year. For over a year, the company treated the symptoms while the disease was one forgotten parameter. The cost of a misset alpha compounds every planning cycle. One review, one afternoon, permanently fixed. Now let us take example of 3 industries. Same concept, 3 completely different ways it breaks. In pharma, established generics need low alpha. Prescription behavior changes very slowly. 1 month of unusual demand is almost always noise. Reacting to it produces inaccurate forecasts. But when you talk about new product, the new product launch needs high alpha. Every data point is valuable. The demand curve is kind of establishing itself. When we talk about fashion pre-season, you are using moderate alpha on analogous data from prior seasons. But the moment week 1 sell-through data arrives, alpha must switch to high immediately, because week 3 through 8 are the real signal. Everything before that can be considered or is exactly the noise. In FMCG, a promotional spike at high alpha enters your base forecast. The model reads it as a permanent demand shift. You inflate your base forecast for the following weeks. You hold safety stock for demand that was never real. The fix is to separate promotional demand from baseline entirely. Low alpha on base, high alpha only on promotional periods. Same parameter, 3 industries, 3 different failure modes. 1 alpha for the portfolio is one answer to 3 different questions. It is wrong for at least 2 of them. So guys, this is part 1 of exponential smoothing and alpha. Now please comment and let me know in the comment, how do we derive alpha? How do we derive alpha? Note down that and mention in comments. So part 2 will be, we will take more systematic view and we will discuss on your comment where do we get alpha from, and also we'll see what's happening with alpha in the real world. I'll be back with part 2 soon.